All right, we're back here for episode 3 of the Mets'd podcast. Mark, James, talking a lot of Mets news today. We have so much to talk about. Before we get going into it, of course, you guys know where to find us. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and if you want to watch it, YouTube. But you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Mets'd podcast. You'll find us everywhere that needs to be found. Talking Mets all the time, and we've got a lot to talk about today. There's been a lot
shockingly.
Shockingly, there's been a lot going on with the Mets. Some good, some bad, some exciting, and some maybe disappointing stuff. So there's a lot to cover here today. Really excited to talk about. I think we just got to start off with it. Francisco Lindor is a New York Met. Francisco Lindor, yes, do a little dance. Francisco Lindor is a New York Met.
It was such great timing that we recorded the entire podcast, like being scared about Lindor's extension, like 6 hours before he actually signed the extension.
Yeah, and like the video, so I went out to dinner that night with like Daniel Kim, who's like a KBO guy, and he was talking about the Lindor extension with me, and I dropped the podcast video and the podcast right before I went out to dinner. So it was like 7 o'clock, and then by the time I came home, and everything was like settled, Lindor just signed. And I was like, oh great, like our podcast is going to get a nice little bump in views, and then it's going to die because everything we talked about became irrelevant within minutes of it coming out. So, I mean, good problem to have. I'm okay with the podcast getting no views on that one because it was not topical anymore. But
yeah, not a big deal. Easy one to waste. I've been hanging out in Southern California visiting a friend, and he's also a very big Mets fan. And that news dropped, I think like it was like 7 or 8 o'clock local time for me because it was late night in the East Coast. And we'd had a couple of drinks and we were hanging out with some people and we just both looked at our phones, like looked at each other at the exact same time and just went, ah! Like, we did it! He slapped my hand so hard it literally hurt.
Oh, see, I didn't get a good slap of the hand, right? But I went outside because Alex was sleeping. I went outside and I just started yelling on the balcony. I was screaming. I did my little video out there. It was raining, so I was getting drenched as well. And I'm like, I'm gonna scream! Ah! I'm like, let's go! We did it!
It was such a scream moment. Like it wasn't even funny.
Like when we got Lindor, we both had great reactions of like, oh my god, we did it. But like now that we signed him, it was like a yell of like, finally! Like this is Steve Cohen, whatever he's promised us, like he really means it. He really means it.
Definitely. And like not to toot my own horn, but during that podcast I said that all he wanted was more money than Fernando Tatis. And he literally all he wanted was more money than Fernando Tatis.
What was it, 1 million more
literally
than Tatis?
1 million more. And the AAV was way above Tatis's because they bought out arbitration. But he literally was like, this 21, 22-year-old, he's played one full season in the league. There's no way he's getting paid more money than me, and it was not going to happen, and it didn't happen. And I'm happy that they could find a middle ground that was like just petty enough that both guys were like aware of it and okay with it to agree to the deal.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. Like, I'm starting to believe maybe that even a lot of like the rumors and stuff that were going on, just people didn't really know and didn't really have like a good take on it. Because I think even like Jeff Passan, like minutes before the Lindor things happened, put out a tweet about how like there's been no talks, it's not happening, opening day's tomorrow, whatever it was. And I was like, damn, like I was kind of sad. I was like, man, it didn't happen. That stinks. Like, okay, that's probably the final straw. And then I think the sauce boss himself, Heyman, broke the news, right?
Yeah, he did. But like, I've been listening to like a lot more podcasts last few days, like catching up and stuff. And Eno Saris made a great point on his Rates and Barrels podcast that the two contracts that were offered during like the stalemate period were really not that far apart in average annual value. And he's a Mets fan. He said that this was the day before he signed. He said that he was really not concerned at all once he saw those two numbers. And like in retrospect, I think he was kind of right. Like they were really never as far apart as I think many people in the media led it to believe.
Yeah, I think like you can get really caught up in seeing like Lindor wanted 380 and the Mets offered 325 and think that they're like 60 million and that's like a big amount if you take like percentage of the total salary. But like you said with the AAV, and I think we even mentioned it last week, like they basically both agreed how much he was worth. It was just a matter of the length, and it seems like Lindor came down on the length. They gave him a little more AAV, and that's where they met.
Yeah, definitely. And there were also some other like more like fine-tuned parts of the contract that definitely caused for negotiations to like take as long as they did. It was all like he has a 15-team no-trade clause for the first 4 years of the deal, which I thought was kind of interesting. I wish I knew we could find out who those 15 teams are. Like it's like he like just like splits the league down the middle.
And that's so interesting. That's the first 4. And if I had to guess, it would probably be the teams that are just not competitive or don't.
Teams that aren't fun, yeah, or warm. And then he's a full no-trade clause for the back end of the deal until 2031, which I thought was also pretty interesting. It seems like he's like giving himself a window where like, yeah, if this doesn't work out, maybe we can work out a trade. But like once I'm here for 5 years, like I'm going to start my life here. This is going to be my home. This is going to be my people. This is going to be my place. And I don't want to leave once I become like stable and secure.
Yeah, it kind of gives them like, not that it's going to happen anyway, but like it gives them a safety net just in case something changes with the New York Mets and, you know, all that. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about that anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, this is just like random minutia that went into it. Just looking through the what
Yeah, it's like even with like was it Bryce Harper's contract or something? There was just like, so every player essentially like puts in something that like they want that they think is going to be like this big chip, and the ownership can give it because like they're like, it still really doesn't mean anything. Like it's not important at all, but sure, if you want it, you get it.
That was also cool that this is the third highest AAV for a position player in baseball, and the highest for a player not on the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah, no, and it's like also good that we've been seeing players just getting like bigger and bigger contracts again, when like there was that whole kind of like really slow window of players not getting paid the money that they deserve. I mean, even the Harper Machado offseason, where it took until February and March for those guys to sign. So it's good to see that like these players that are the top players in the game are finally starting to just like get the money that they deserve, because it's really just like, that's what you watch the game for. You watch for the players. They're the ones bringing in all the revenue. They deserve to get paid. That was like a huge thing I talked about last year, especially with the what's the word I'm talking about, with the salaries, that prorated salaries. Like it was just like, pay the guys what you owe them. They're worth that money. Yeah,
amazingly happy, like incredibly happy. It's also funny that a lot of this money in this contract's deferred. Like they deferred $50 million worth to be paid from 2032 to 2041. And just like looking at those years and typing them out on our outline was like wild. Just think about the year 2041.
2041, I'll be 45.
Yep.
Yes, oh god, that's like nightmare fuel. I don't need to ever think about being 45 right now.
And Francisco, and you know there's going to be tweets that I don't even know if I hope that Twitter will probably still be around then, but there'll be tweets with like tens of thousands of favorites, like, oh, another $5 million for Francisco Lindor in like 2039. However this career goes, like maybe it'll be like, wow.
I think it's going to go on a pretty good trajectory. I'm just so happy that like it seems like pretty much to the end of his career he's going to be a New York Met. He's going to be in the orange and blue, going to be playing shortstop every single day. Something we haven't had a really good shortstop since Jose Reyes. And even then, like, Lindor is a far better player than Reyes, I think, ever was. So he has the potential, I think, to become like an all-time franchise great kind of player.
No, definitely. If this all goes according to plan, there's a good chance you see Francisco Lindor's number in Citi Field for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, which would be really cool. I would if we see his number retired at the end of all of this, something really good has happened during those 10 years. I'm all for that 100%. And then with all the excitement that was Francisco Lindor signing, you know, just a few hours later, that high just absolutely crashed with the Washington Nationals and the COVID stuff. I don't know what your take is, because we didn't want to talk about it too much so that we could actually talk about it today. But I know, like, I got a lot to say. I'm not happy about the situation.
Yeah, big takeaway here is fuck the Nationals.
Of course, always.
Hate those guys.
Nationals.
Yeah. I've never even hated the Nationals. Like, I kind of hated Bryce Harper. Like, when they won the World Series, I didn't feel like I got stabbed in my heart like I would have felt like if the Braves or the Phillies or the Yankees won a World Series. But this current juncture, right now, this moment, after these 3 days, fuck the Washington Nationals. They killed a great baseball weekend.
You took away opening day after signing the biggest contract for one of the best players in franchise history.
It's so ironic because the opening day was this like massive deadline that we set for Lindor, and it was like there's like on Twitter, Tacoma was like 56 hours till opening day, 48 hours till opening day, 36 hours till opening day, and then just got taken away. Like, what if they didn't get the deal done? We could have had 3 more days to negotiate.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I wonder if, let's just say, like, we didn't get the deal done by then. Would they have used these 3 days to continue negotiating? Or Lindor's like, no, I'm done. It's opening day was supposed to happen. I'm not talking.
But basically, the Nationals are just some lousy, good-for-nothing losers.
Yeah, I just, like...
They're the worst.
I'm so on the fence with how I'm feeling, because, like, definitely upset that the Mets didn't get to play. You robbed us of opening day. Granted, we get to see DeGrom and the Phillies this week, which we'll talk about later, but... What is the point of having like the COVID protocols and the taxi squad and all these precautions for something like this to happen so the schedule doesn't get screwed? Because right now the Mets are just like, they're getting screwed. There's no other way around.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And I think the Nationals play the Braves next series, I think. And the Braves are going to get a huge bump because the Nationals are going to be able to use their taxi squad guys then against the Braves, when it should have really been against the Mets as well. Like, why does it feel like the
definitely,
Mets...
it's ridiculous. The Nationals the Braves are going to get to face, like, God knows whoever fills in for the Nationals pitching, and we're going to have to pitch Corey Oswalt in like 6 days.
Yeah, which is stupid.
In a game that we're almost definitely going to lose.
And like 2 7-inning games, 100% plays better to the Nationals than it does the Mets.
It's probably true just because their bullpen's that much worse. But also, like, now they've come out, like, only 4 players in the team actually have COVID. And it was like Kyle Schwarber, John Lester, Al Avila, and Josh Harrison that came out earlier this morning.
Which, shockingly, that's the older group of guys. I would have thought, if anything, it would have been some of the younger guys, just because when you think of, like, COVID protocols, like, I'm back, I'm going to go grab a drink or something at a bar.
But, like, two of those guys are barely even Major League Baseball players at this point, if not 3 of the 4 of them.
Yeah, and Lester wouldn't have even pitched against the Mets.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, Josh Harrison is COVID. They literally, like, top prospects, 2 of their top prospects, Luis Garcia and Carter Kieboom, easily could have filled in a second base, probably should be filling in a second base anyway, instead of Josh Harrison. There's no reason that this series should have been postponed for 4, like, nominal players.
Yeah, I think, like, I would have been okay with the first game because they probably, like, wanted to do the testing and make sure that, like, no one was in contact and the tracing and all that stuff. But the entire series being canceled just seems like it made zero sense to me whatsoever. Like you said, it's 4 guys. That's the only 4 guys now that we know of. And we push back every single game. I understand the schedule has the opportunity to do that, and there's off days, and we do play the Nationals a bunch, so you have a chance to make up those games. But if you're going to have these rules, if you're going to have these protocols in place, I'm all for keeping the players as safe as physically possible, but also at the same time, like, what is the punishment then for using these protocols? Because it seems like, okay, well, if they break the protocols and they have too many guys, the taxi squad doesn't even matter, it seems like at this point. It's just a... what's the word I'm looking for? Basically like a...
Formality?
Yeah, a formality. Like, we have the taxi squad just in case, but clearly it's not going to be used if it needs to be, from what it seems like. It's just like the Mets are getting screwed in this situation, I feel like.
Definitely. And of course, there was still contact tracing going on, so they didn't really know that it was just these 4 players until late last night, early this morning.
Yeah.
But they still could have got a game in today. They canceled the entire series before, like, they could have just gone day by day with cancellations. The Mets and Nationals could have been playing at 4 p.m. today for, like, a weird 1-game opening day. Or they even could have started the season with 2 doubleheaders, and we could have watched DeGrom and Stroman throw 2 7-inning complete games.
Yeah.
Would have been fun.
Would have been great.
But, like, it turned into, like, this weird, like, Twilight Zone, like, blue ball opening day situation, because I'm watching baseball and enjoying everything, like, stats are accumulating, like, crazy fun things are happening, and the Mets are just not playing.
Yeah, no, we tweeted out, I think we tweeted out on the Mets'd Up podcast Twitter, at Mets'd Up on Twitter, like, multiple times, like, oh, man, I wish the Mets were playing right now, or, like, wouldn't it be great to watch the Mets? Like, who misses the Mets? Like, it was just like, this is the worst tease of all time, especially with the high of Lindor, like, getting to see him play his first game as a Met, knowing he's going to be here for the next... Does the contract start this year, or is it at the end of this year?
I think it's at the end of this year, because they already agreed to an arbitration figure for this year.
Okay, so we get to see him for 11 years, basically. Like, this is the start of the Lindor era, and it's like, nope, COVID, sorry.
It sucked. It felt so bizarre, like, sitting there on Thursday and watching baseball and being like, I'm not even going to see the Mets for days. And, like, the one silver lining I drew from it, which tweeted also from the Mets'd Up podcast, Mets'd Up on Twitter, was that if they only would have missed 1 or 2 games, it could have lined up DeGrom or even Stroman to pitch the first game in City on Thursday. And now neither of them are going to be even close to available to pitch that game. It's going to be either Peterson or Taijuan Walker, depending on if they decide to split up the lefties or not at the back end of the rotation. Which also sucks. That's a massive buzzkill.
Yeah, now, granted, we do get to play the Marlins, and based on how they've looked, these last few games, that's an offense that not really worried about right now. So
yeah, anemic would be the word.
Yeah, I'm okay with not using DeGrom and Stroman against those guys. I'd like them to get starts against some of the better teams and more competent offensive teams. But yeah, I mean, like a home opener at Citi Field with DeGrom, and then the next day Stroman would have been electric.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the building, so color me selfish, but I would have loved to have seen DeGrom live on Thursday afternoon.
You telling me you don't want to see Taijuan Walker's debut, or maybe even Joey Lucchesi if he gets the ball?
Hey, I'm happy to see Taijuan Walker's debut. I do not want to see Joey Lucchesi if he gets the ball. Not live, at least. I want to be able to change the channel if Joey Lucchesi's pitching. I want to be able to watch another game at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, I think the biggest takeaway from the Nationals is that they're lousy good-for-nothing losers.
Yes, lousy good-for-nothing losers. That could be even the name of this podcast. The Nationals are lousy good-for-nothing losers.
And follow COVID protocols, people. Just
listen.
them.
Just what are you doing? We did this for an entire season. I guess the Nationals kind of took last year off as a team anyway.
And it's the veterans, too. It's the veterans. Was Alex Avila on the Cubs at all last year?
I don't know. Alex Avila, he's been like going between the Cubs and the Tigers for like our entire
and the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, for like our entire lives. I don't know where he is when, but he's always around. And he always he always has like 250 at bats and like hits kind of well.
Because like an interesting thing with the guys who did test positive, Schwarber Cubs, Lester Cubs. Harrison was with the Nationals last year. If Avila was with the Cubs last year,
right now.
Is this a Chicago Cubs problem? They can't follow rules?
No, he's with the Twins last year. But
okay.
50% of it, I'll still call this a Chicago Cubs problem.
Yeah, of course, definitely. 50% of the guys. I mean, like you said, it was a blue ball moment if there was ever one. And luckily, today's Sunday when we're recording this, they would have been playing right now. Probably would have seen the Mets up like 3 or 4-0 at this point. But we get to see the Mets play real baseball tomorrow. And at the time,
I hope. I don't want to. I'm not knocking on wood. I don't want to jinx it. I pray to God the Mets play tomorrow.
By the time that this is dropping, it'll probably be tonight. So Sunday night, you guys will be, within hours of Mets baseball, hopefully. And we are in a pretty good scenario here against the Phillies because now we do get to start with our best 3 guys going up against the Phillies. DeGrom against Matt Moore, game 1. That's a matchup I love to see. That's a matchup I love to see, especially with our super right-handed, I don't want to say dominant, but we do have good splits against lefty pitchers especially for our right-handed batters. I'm feeling good about, this series, even though the Phillies have looked good thus far.
Yeah, the Phillies have looked good. I actually do really want to talk about how good the Phillies look because I know you have your whole Philly shtick. Whatever, it happens.
I can admit when they are. I admit when they're good at things, but I also love to say that they're a 4th place team because they are. But yeah,
I hinted at it in our first 2 episodes, but I really think the Phillies are actually like a dark horse, like playoff contender in the National League. Especially the last 2 days watching Wheeler and Nola both just shove. That's and today so far, Eflin has also looked great. Eflin's a guy who I've been high on for years and years and years and years. Eflin, for anyone who didn't know, had a regenerative knee issue that he was unaware of for the first 25 years of his life. He was basically pitching with just an arm. He was using no back and no leg because he couldn't bend over. And there's crazy quotes where he talks about this. And if you go back and look at clips of him pitching his first year in the league, he's basically upright. And in the last 2 years, he's really getting into it. And he's gained 4 miles an hour in his fastball since he learned to use his legs and fixed his degenerative knees. So he's a guy who I'm watching, but the rotation falls off after these first 3. As good as those first 3 are, 4 and 5 are basically non-existent.
Who even are there 4 and 5? I don't have a clue.
It's more, and they still try to make Vince Velasquez happen, but I don't know if that's ever going to work.
Yeah, just use him in the bullpen already. I don't know why they haven't made him just be
he
come out there, throw 100, because he does have a good arm, and he does have some decent stuff, but
he's very decent stuff.
He falls off every time the second time through the lineup. He just can't figure it out.
He's one of those guys who would stuff without command, which work super well in the bullpen, have for generations. A big guy who's stuff and no command who looks great for the Phillies so far is Jose Alvarado. He looks like he lost 15, 20 pounds at least. And
he was a round fella with the Rays.
He was a round fella. Just put him on the ground, roll him into the clubhouse. But he was throwing BBs the other day. He hit 100 miles an hour. I don't know how often he really ever did that with the Rays, but he was busting him in there.
Yeah, no, I know he's always had a good arm. He's always been battling injury issues as well. I think we got to see him a little bit more stretched out probably before we start to really make a huge decision on whether or not Alvarado's legit or not, especially because I think he's had huge walk problems in the past too. Where
walk problems. He has crazy walk rates. Yeah. Which happens. But a lefty who could throw 100 with that kind of slider, sure. But
it's always dangerous.
You want to know who's starting the 5th game of the season for the Phillies? Chase Anderson. The only thing more boring than Chase Anderson's name is his stuff. Guys, stinks.
God, that is a personal attack, but it is very true. I think I did I don't know what I did. I had to talk about the Blue Jays last year at one point for something, and I had to talk about Chase Anderson on the mound. I was like, I don't care who he's playing, who it is, you bet against Chase Anderson. He's just not, he can't beat you. There's no way. He's just the little year that he had in Milwaukee a couple years ago where he was okay. It's that's not Chase Anderson anymore. He loves to just get hit really hard.
Milwaukee just does that. I don't care who pitches for Milwaukee. They're going to find 5 innings and give up 3 runs and just keep them in the game. Brett Anderson, the second most boring Anderson in the league, has been doing that for 3 years running now.
So wait, we're getting Matt Moore and Chase Anderson the first 2 games against the Phillies?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that.
Maybe we should just throw Peterson and Lucchesi those 2 games.
I know, right? Let Peterson be the opening day starter. Oh man, wow, yeah. Going back to what you said about Nola and Wheeler, I think Nola is a guy that if you watched last year, because he had the Cy Young caliber year, then I think 19 he was okay. He was just he had a big step back. People started to figure him out a little bit more, just wasn't getting the production that he did before. And then 20 he looked really good.
Great, but if you look, and you've listened to Nolas talk about this, he blames the baseball in 19 for his problems, not because of the home run environment, but because it was more difficult to grip. And Trevor Bauer has spoken about that too, because he struggled a lot in 19 compared to the last 3 years. And Nola is he's big changeup curveball guy, and he doesn't have elite velocity. He's all about command, and he has amazing command, some of the best in the league. And when you're a command guy and you lose a little bit of command like that, you will fall off a cliff because your mistakes. Velocity's not going to save your mistakes like that, and when you make them, they're going to get jumped on, especially when the ball is giving up more home runs. So Yeah, Noel's perennial Cy Young contender. He's one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's unheralded just because he's pretty unspectacular and because the Phillies haven't been very good during his prime. But he's fantastic. And Wheeler, wow. Wheeler looked amazing yesterday.
I remember like people were giving the Phillies a lot of crap, and I was one of the few people who didn't about the Zach Wheeler signing where they paid 23 instead of 20, and everyone was like, "Oh, they overpaid." I'm like, "Hold on, first off,
no way."
I was like, "Hold on, it's like 15 million over 5 years extra to get the guy that they wanted, who that they think is going to be good." We're like talking about pennies at this point, and my whole thing with Zach Wheeler was that he reminded me a lot of Garrett Cole in Pittsburgh, especially because they throw very similar pitches. They have, if you put them, like, overlay their windup and how they throw.
Dude, I incepted you with this knowledge.
No, you didn't.
This is my take from last year.
I said this before you did. You can go to my video, go to my Zach Wheeler video when he signs with the Philadelphia Phillies, and we were not talking this much at this point.
No, I'll tell you right now, I applied to work for a baseball ops internship with the Phillies during the offseason before Wheeler signed, and I wrote my entire write-up to those rat fucks about why Zach Wheeler was the most valuable free agent on the market, and I made my own graphics and overlaid all their stuff and just showed their differences in pitch selection basically, and was like, this is the one.
So for those of you, listening or watching, just to prove it, so December 4th, 2019, Zach Wheeler signs with the Phillies. If you go to my video, I literally, same thing, like pull up the numbers of Cole and Wheeler for the 3 years before Cole was in Houston and the 3 years that Wheeler was with the Mets. And they have almost identical numbers with the identical pitches. I think Cole throws his curveball a little bit more. I think might be the only difference or something like that. Whatever it was, I don't remember what the exact numbers are.
Well, the big thing with both of those guys when they switched teams and went to, I guess that time the Mets were a pretty incompetent organization still, is just throwing less sinkers in favor of more four-seam fastballs.
Yes.
And Wheeler did that last year, but he still wasn't getting the whiffs he wanted. I think Wheeler had the lowest strikeout rate of his career last year. It was basically under 20%. He was like Kyle Hendricks with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. But yesterday, Wheeler's fastball was blazing hot, and he was getting tons of whiffs. He got 8 whiffs on just the fastball in 40-something pitches, which was great. And he topped out of the 100. He was sitting 98. That's really good.
I think anybody with a clue that was a Mets fan knew that this was going to be a guy that's going to hurt us, that we let go over the difference of $15 million over 5 years, which, thank you, cheap-ass Will Ponds, for that. Because everybody knew, we saw what he was doing with the Mets the last few years. He was getting stronger. He was finally showing that he was healthy. And while he still had a little bit of I like to call him he nibbled a little bit. He wasn't putting away guys, which I think that's always probably going to be a little bit of his problem, is he just doesn't put people away. But his stuff was so good, and when he is clicking, which I think that's what you can expect to see now with the Phillies, you go, man, this guy is really, really good.
Dude, definitely. And he's near the top of the league over the last 3 seasons in innings pitched and games started. He's become something of a horse, which is crazy to think about from where he came from. But this is not about the Phillies. I think we should transition a little bit just for a few minutes on the Braves, because those two guys have made the Braves hitters look bad. So far this season, even including today, at the time of shooting this, so it might be different by the time that we put it out. But Ozuna, Freeman, and Albies have combined for 1 hit versus these Philly starting pitchers. Of course, that's not going to last. The Braves are going to get hot. Those bats are some of the best in baseball, but I think it just shows that a lot of the teams at the top of this division might be closer than people think.
I think that's a fair statement. I don't want to overreact too much because, like you said, these bats are some of the best in the league, and they are also facing some of the better pitchers in the league. So it's expected that you're not going to necessarily put up a 5 spot on them every single time you face them. So it's fine, especially early in the season when pitchers tend to be ahead of hitters anyway. But I think the Braves, might be in a little bit of trouble, especially with the pitching side. I expected their pitching to be better, and maybe that was foolish of me. You've been saying it from the start that this Braves pitching isn't anything. But I just...
that's not anything, but it just seems like it's a little bit inflated by... I don't even know. By something like past performance,
Charlie Morton.
Fried looked great on opening
Charlie
day.
Morton isn't the same Charlie Morton that he once was.
No,
clearly,
he's not even close to that.
There's a reason the Rays didn't bring him back, and because I think they saw this.
Definitely. And also the Mets kind of bowed out of that negotiation too, which was kind of cool. But he didn't look very good at all yesterday. I'm going to check out his velocity numbers right now, but his curveball looked a little bit weak. He sat 94.5, which is pretty okay for him. That'll come. He touched 96 a few times, but he only got 3 whiffs on his curveball. That's crazy low for Charlie Morton. That's a very scary number. I guess, you threw it 30 times, but still. If he's the 2 starter, especially their bullpen's also not very good. Their bullpen blew the game on opening day, too. Like, there's just not a lot of pitching depth here. They're going to need, like, big seasons from Ian Anderson, Kyle Wright, Bryce Wilson. They're going to need multiple of those guys to step up if they want to have the pitching depth to compete with the Mets and the Phillies, which is crazy talking about the Phillies pitching depth because now I think they actually have some.
Yeah, and like a video I made recently about like how every team can win the World Series for the Braves, I was like, the pitching obviously has to step up, but it's not just like the guys that you think. It's like you said, Kyle Wright, Bryce Wilson, even like a Tukey Toussaint. Those guys need to step up because we saw Sean Newcomb pitch yesterday, and I think the Sean Newcomb experiment needs to come to an end in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
Unless he pitches against the Mets, he doesn't have it. So I don't know how many more times they're going to throw this guy out there and just see him consistently like struggle, doesn't throw strikes, doesn't put batters away, gets hit hard. Even last year when he pitched against the Mets, and I think had a good outing per se. I think it was a game where they just like smacked us by like 15 runs. Sean Newcomb, I think, still threw like 80 pitches through 3.5 innings, and it was like this is
that was like a 17-11 like Sunday Night Baseball game, right?
Yeah, and it was just like the Mets were hitting him hard, hitting him into outs. He got lucky, and I just don't feel like the Braves have seen that, and they keep throwing him out there, and he keeps not pitching well.
It's weird. As good as the Braves' development has been, like with hitters, like they basically haven't missed on the bats. Their pitching development has not been good. Like Newcomb, Tukey Toussaint, and Kyle Wright all objectively have like top end stuff. Like you watch those guys pitch, and like the curves are nice. The velocity, besides for Newcomb, is good. Like sliders, changeups, they have everything in a toolbox that you need to be a successful pitcher. But they're all just off. They all don't have the command that it takes to be a successful starting pitcher in the major leagues, which is it's worrisome for them. It's cool for us. And they're putting a lot of eggs in the Ian Anderson basket. And Ian Anderson looks great, and he had an awesome year last year, highly touted prospect, but he still doesn't really have elite velocity or elite stuff. Like there's a galaxy, and same is true with Fried. I do love Max Fried though, but there's a galaxy where both of those guys take at least half steps back.
Yeah, and even when you talk about like their pitching development, I mean, like a guy like Kyle Muller was like super hyped up, super top, and he's kind of like fizzled off a little bit. And even some of the guys that they've traded away recently, it's just like the pitchers they have gotten had hype and just haven't really developed into what they thought they would be. And go figure, like Max Fried and Soroka are the guys that end up being like their big, 1-2. And Soroka's going to come back eventually at some point. I think like by the end.
Soroka will be back probably in the next few weeks.
Right?
Yeah, so. And Smiley's also looked good. He had a good spring. He had his good sample last year, but you can't count on Drew Smiley.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't be counting on a guy who can't ever pitch more than 80 innings in a year.
Literally, if he gives you 130 innings, you should like go down on your knees and just like thank the heavens that Drew Smiley.
He'll give you a good 130 probably.
For sure. I like as a fantasy baseball player, I've been getting Drew Smiley everywhere, just because the stuff is there. It's always been there. I've been waiting for Drew Smiley since his days with the Rays, just to put it together one time. It just might, but like I don't know, like how unintimidating is the Braves bullpen?
Super. So like I like some of the arms, but then they haven't produced this year. Which again, 2 games. Like you gotta take everything with a grain of salt. But I like Will Smith a lot. Like I think he just gets slept on.
Will Smith's very good.
Will Smith's really good. And I like Chris Martin. I think Chris Martin showed like some good stuff the last couple of years with the Braves.
He's fine. He's good.
But the rest of it, like Luke Jackson stinks.
Yeah.
I would love to see Luke Jackson come in a close game, please.
Matzik like appears to be good, but I just simply don't believe it.
Yeah, because he's just like it was a short sample size last year, and he has some stuff, but he's another guy who like highly touted prospect. He was the number 11 overall pick back in 2009, and he really only just started to get like a legit
Did you do that
shot.
from memory?
No, I Googled him already. I did it. So he was the Mike Trout draft, I think, right? 2009 or whatever it was.
You're a much bigger draft guy than me.
The only reason I know that is because I did a video about like the guys picked before Mike Trout, and I think he was one of them. And I remember being like, at the time when I made the video, I'm like, he hasn't pitched since 2015 in the majors. I was like, so I don't really know what to take with it. In reliever role, he could be effective, but he also
definitely he did 35% K rate last year, that's pretty elite. That'll get the job done 10 times out of 10. But
like you said,
again, these guys do not strike fear into me.
No, I think the Braves team is just. They're a team that kind of needs everything to go right now in order to be as good as...
Everything on the pitching side.
Yes,
everything
on
on the pitching side.
Hitting side, no worries. There's literally no worries on the hitting side.
No.
You're going to go hot. You're going to go cold. That happens throughout a year. But I think there are legitimate concerns with their pitching that need to be addressed at some point by them. As a Mets fan, I'm happy. Yes, which, I mean, like right now, the Nationals have some problems. The Braves got some problems. The Phillies are the only team that's looking pretty good right now.
Phillies do look pretty good. But the Phillies also put up like literally 2 empty spots in the order every single day.
It's just like the Phillies are going to score runs. That's always going to be their thing. They're going to be able to outscore people. They have a fairly good offense. Like I hate Hoskins, but he hits. Real Muto hits. Even though he's not playing today. I think Knapp's playing today, right?
Yeah, but Real Madrid started the year. He's healthy. He had to put the ball and play like 110 miles an hour yesterday. He's healthy as hell.
That's about right. Yeah, Didi, as much as like Didi is an average shortstop, like he still hits well. The reason he's average is because he can't field. And
Dude, same with Segura. All Segura does is hit.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
All he does is hit, but also like not really. You know?
Yeah, no, but kind of.
Like he's the classic. Like I'm good for like a good single every game. I love a good single. I'll have an OPS that hovers right around 750 every year. So he doesn't like, he's not someone that instills fear in most teams.
No, but he's a baseball player. Segura,
yes.
Every single day he's on the field, like good things happen. Like he runs the bases well. Even as like his athleticism diminishes, he continues to steal bases. He's already like, he's already stolen a base this year.
Yeah.
Like not many guys steal bases. Segura found one. Like he's just a good ball player. He doesn't strike out very much. He doesn't walk very much either. But he does things that are good consistently.
And like in that lineup, you can hit him towards like, you know, the back end of it to help.
No, yeah, I think he's been hitting like 6-7. He's just been like raking them in.
And
runs.
Bohm's a beast. I'm a big fan of Bohm.
Bohm, yeah, he's so good.
We know how good Harper is. We don't have to talk about Harper. He's a stud, even though, you know, Mets have had his number recently, which is nice. And then Andrew McCutchen, I kind of think he does his thing. He's kind of like he reminds me a lot of like the Curtis Granderson role with the Mets back in 2015. Definitely. Like top of the order, lead off home run. That's kind of what they're looking for right there.
Elder statesman.
Yes. So the Phillies team, I think we got unlucky that we had no opening day baseball, but we got lucky that we get to face the Phillies with our best pitchers, and they have Matt Moore and Chase Anderson pitching 2 of the 3 games. Like, couldn't have asked for a better matchup.
And of course, that's going to be Spencer Howard at some point this year. I guess they want to see some more of him in the minors, but we will take every single Chase Anderson start directly to the bank. And I'm excited to face him.
Yeah, no, and of course, you know, knock on wood, he's not going to come out there and pitch lights out all of a sudden and throw 96 or whatever it's going to be.
I look like a real idiot. Chase Anderson shuts the Mets down, 6 innings, no run.
You mentioned Chase Anderson, I laughed in his face. So, you know, hopefully Chase Anderson isn't listening, putting this up in his locker or whatever as a little motivation. The Mets up.
I almost hope he does. I would kill if this got into Major League Baseball locker rooms. That'd be great. I don't even care if it was for hate.
They're listening to Mark Luino and James Schiano before the game. They're like, Chase Anderson's like, these assholes think I can't pitch, huh?
These losers.
I'll show them.
Yeah, real strong guy behind a microphone, huh?
Yeah. Let me see you try to hit me. It's like, well, you know, you are a Major League Baseball pitcher, so.
I would try.
I think we'd have a shot. If there's anybody on that Phillies team, it's Chase Anderson, though. We might have a shot against.
If you had to face one pitcher in Major League Baseball,
Chase Anderson's on the short list.
He's definitely on the short list there. He's one of the guys I'm considering.
Him and maybe who was it that pitched yesterday? That was just Chris Archer against the Marlins looked horrendous. Not to shit on Chris Archer. He's such a nice good dude. I met him at spring training a couple years ago. Incredibly friendly and nice, but he just doesn't.
Also, it's just like thoracic outlet syndrome. It's just impossible to come back from. And speaking of thoracic outlet syndrome...
Here we go.
Yesterday, for some reason, people thought Mets opening day was yesterday because Matt Harvey was pitching for the Orioles. For some reason, that's a big deal.
Am I maybe the bad take of the day? Because I had a tweet that, I mean, people on Mets Twitter... You would have thought... The bad take of the day. You would have thought that I said Tom Seaver is a piece of shit lowlife. Why are they building a statue for him? I mean... Let me read out the tweet. James got in the bad tweet day last few times. Let me read out mine. And, you know, according to Mets Twitter, this is a bad take all of a sudden, which I vehemently disagree with. So, like James said, you would have thought it was Mets opening day because it was Harvey. Thank you. SAT word. SAT word of the day. I think I do that every single episode as well. But it was Harvey nonstop yesterday on Twitter. So I was like, am I the only Mets fan who couldn't care less about how Matt Harvey does today? Did we all forget how much of a tool he was at the end of his tenure with the Mets? By the way, didn't say I hope he pitches like shit. I hope he gets hurt. I just said I don't care. He doesn't play for the Mets anymore. It's irrelevant. His performance has no impact on my life whatsoever. And I got quote tweeted out the ass. I got replied to. People were trying to ratio me. The tweet still did well. It still got 700 likes. So there are plenty of Mets fans who agree with me.
Wow, dude, sick.
But there are so many people and like, you know, some names in the Mets community that you probably know that were like just so upset that I said this.
Yeah, I can't even comprehend caring about Matt Harvey anymore. Like, Rafael Montero gave up a home run the other night to Alex Dickerson. Who cares? Like, Steven Matz is going to pitch this week for the Blue Jays. Who cares? Like, these guys aren't on the Mets.
I honestly have more interest in Rafael Montero than Matt Harvey at this point because there's a world where Rafael Montero could have an impact for the Mets if we trade for him as a bullpen arm, where I see there's no world where Matt Harvey comes back on the Mets or should come back to the Mets.
Do you know whose start, former Met, was actually more meaningful than Harvey's yesterday?
Chris Flexen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yes, I knew it was
He looked great. He looked awesome.
Like, I get it. Harvey had the 2015 World Series, and he pitched his heart out, and he was great for us when he was great. But after 2015, obviously he had the injuries and stuff, and his career went downhill. And he left a bad taste in my mouth with how he ended, of like when he got sent down, and he needed to be sent down. He didn't have it. He had to figure something out, refused the assignment, and then was like, trade me, get me off the team.
No, he was literally always an asshole. Like, remember that time that like David Wright, when he was like on the team for a few weeks, and probably 2015 or 14, he like walked up to Harvey and like put his arm around him, like basically chastised him for being a douchebag. Like Harvey did have those great seasons for the Mets. I'll never forget the way he pitched in like 2013.
He was electric. He was absolutely
he was incredible. One of the best one of the best full seasons in Mets history. But he's going to be considered like kind of like, I guess, a Doc Gooden when it's all said and done.
But even then, that's disrespectful to Doc Gooden.
No, definitely, because Doc Gooden had more good years and he did way more cocaine, so there was more of a reason for him to fall off.
And won a World Series and won a Cy Young. I mean, like, he was just a significantly better pitcher than Matt Harvey. So I had people say like, oh, the Harvey thing is comparable to Doc or Strawberry. I got a couple DMs about that. I'm like, but it's not, because you're talking about some of the greatest players in Mets history that, you know, one day maybe if they didn't have all these, you know, copious drug problems and arrests and everything, could have had their number retired in the stadium. Matt Harvey is nowhere even close, I think, to making it into the Mets Hall of Fame. I'm so done with Harvey. This is such an old Mets thinking. This is such an old Mets like way to act, is worrying about how Matt Harvey does. And it's okay. You can want him to do well. But I think like everybody is in the back of their mind hoping that Harvey's going to return to 2014, 2013 form, which is impossible.
There's no chance that ever happens.
It's impossible with what's happened to him. It's just physically not going to happen. I'm sorry to rain on your parade.
There's a better chance of Chase Anderson throwing a perfect game.
Yes. Like, there's zero chance that Matt Harvey returns to the form that he has. And I think a lot of Mets fans hope that he does and that he's going to make a comeback with the Mets and be our fifth starter or a guy in the bullpen.
That can't be it. That can't be what people actually think.
Dude, SNY tweets it out every other day like, oh, is a possible Matt Harvey reunion inevitable? And I go, Sandy Alderson.
They did tweet that actually in March. You're right.
Sandy Alderson seems to be pretty competent, and it seems like Steve Cohen and everyone else around there does. No. If you have any sort of idea of what's going on, a Matt Harvey reunion should be the last thing you're thinking about. We should be out there focused on getting good players that can help us win, not worried about the old guys that, let's see if he can go out there and lace them up one more time for the Mets.
No, the guy is literally irrelevant. He couldn't be more irrelevant. He's a fringe starter for the team with the worst pitching in baseball. Like, who cares?
To, you know, play devil's advocate here. Did have a decent start yesterday. Decent start.
I honestly didn't even look.
Well, like, I mean, at that point I had to, because everyone was shitting down my throat for saying I didn't care. But he actually had a decent start yesterday. 4 2/3. It's Matt Harvey. It's fine. 6 hits, 1 walk, no earned runs, or 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. Fine. That's Matt. But that's probably the best performance you're going to get out of Matt Harvey in a season right now.
Historically good performance by Matt Harvey.
Yeah, like, I mean, just like the quote tweets and the replies I was getting, you seriously would have thought I was talking about Mets royalty that I didn't care about. Again, didn't say I hope this guy pitches like shit. Didn't say, you know, I hope he stubs his toe and can't play. I was just like, I don't care, and I don't understand why Mets fans do.
Matt Harvey threw 66% fastballs in the start yesterday. That's crazy from the guy who once was.
And he throws
he
93.
He topped out 94.5.
Yeah.
Sat 93.
He can't live that way. Eventually teams are going to hit that and hit him really, really hard. Like, it's just
surprising the Red Sox didn't. I thought the Red Sox had a good offense. Through the first week they've been pretty bad.
They've been ice cold. We have so many good players to focus on, and we have so many things with our own team. I get the Mets weren't playing, so you had to find something. But the idea that, like, Matt Harvey is this, like, folk legend, this hero, like, people were making him out to be, like, a messiah almost. Like, he gave it all. He ruined his career for this team. Like, I was like, oh my God, he pitched.
That's not what happened at all.
He pitched. That's not what happened. He got hurt while he was on the team. Yes, and I loved what he did. I would have gave him the ball in 2015 again, too. I was so pumped when he ran out of the dugout. I was like, hell yeah, this is sick. Goosebump moments. But that Harvey's gone. It's over. Put it in the past. Let's look forward. We have so many good things to look forward to. Why are we living in the past talking about Matt Harvey still? Nonsense. But yeah, I mean, that was I'll take well, actually, you know what, that's the bad tweet of the day. Apparently we'll go with that one for today. And then the last little bit thing to talk about, there's not too much to go over here with this, but Conforto extension rumors have been flying around a little bit.
We honestly pushed back recording this like a few minutes just because Conforto was speaking to the media over the last half hour, and he has since said, at this point, I'm not really interested in talking about it. When Anthony DiComo asking about an extension, right now I'm focusing on baseball. I'm focused on getting ready for the Phillies. So it doesn't seem like we're going to get a Michael Conforto extension. No. And it didn't really seem like that ever, especially given next year's free agents. Scott Boras being his agent. This was a foregone conclusion for years. Whatever. That's all right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they won't get it done. It's just...
Yeah, also, apparently, Michael Conforto is not getting the COVID vaccine, which you could take that as you will.
And apparently J.D. Davis maybe too.
Yeah, well,
A lot of Mets open about not getting COVID vaccine, and that was another thing that was starting up a shitstorm on Twitter the other day too. Like everyone was freaking out about that.
Yeah, a couple anti-vaxxers in the clubhouse. Whatever.
Yeah,
it's not great, but
I'd prefer they got the vaccine. I definitely.
Yeah, I'd like it if they did.
I'd like if they believed in modern medicine, but that's fine. I get it. Everyone has their own beliefs. To each their own. It's whatever. But yeah, I mean, we all want Conforto back. We know we want him back. I think the Lindor contract at least kind of sets a little bit of a tone of what they can offer him, and like that they are willing to spend this kind of money.
But he's definitely going to get minimum $200 million, and it just doesn't seem like the Mets are willing to fork over $500 million in a week.
Yeah, no, I don't think this week. I think that's a decision that they might make at the end of the season, and depending on his performance, that number might go up, it might go down. Who knows? But
yeah, it could stay exactly the same.
I feel like right now the baseline, at least for him, is probably 8 for 200. I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Definitely.
gives him 25 a year.
Yeah, which I think that'd be super fair.
I think that's a fair for both sides because I don't think he's a $30 million a year player. I think you have to seriously be an MVP candidate to kind of get that kind of money. And he's not there yet. He's a great hitter, but he's not an MVP candidate just yet. 25 mil I think would be fair. Is that what he's going to want? Probably not. He's a Boris agent, probably wants as much as physically possible.
Here's a little fun update. We were talking about Eflin shoving before. He got through 6 innings scoreless. And Travis d'Arnaud just hit a solo home run for the Braves to tie the game in the 7th.
The Mets helping him out. Mets players always beating up on the Phillies. You got to love that. This is a little thing I wanted to bring up here too. So are we rooting for the Braves or the Phillies in these games? Because I've kind of been going for the Phillies because I think the Braves are going to win more. But also at the same time, like, I don't want the Phillies to win too many.
This is a July and August problem.
Yes,
I'm not rooting for other teams yet.
Yeah, okay, that's
we're only rooting for other teams because the Mets are not on.
Yes,
we're just bored.
That's true. I am so bored, man. No Mets baseball is a punishment.
Yeah, it sucks. It's a punishment.
Lousy, good for nothing, loser national fucks.
Yeah, amen.
Hate them.
Fuck them.
Hate them. And when we play them, we're gonna have to stomp on their throats. It's just that simple.
Oh, I plan to.
Yes, curb stomp.
I'd love to do it personally. Yeah, it'd be great.
Smack them around a little bit. Be like, you know what? You can be the 4th place team now. See you later. Yeah. No, I think this was considering again nothing but something has happened for like the 3rd straight recording of ours.
Yeah, as we've squeaked out 3 episodes here, and there even was a 4th that we just held from you guys because it wasn't very good because we had nothing to talk about.
Yeah,
we've done well. It's been good. Imagine what we're going to talk about when the Mets do play.
Yeah, when the Mets have games and like little decisions to go over and performances, this might turn into a 3-hour podcast. Hopefully not, but I mean, like, yeah, we've talked about pretty much nothing and something for 45 minutes, which is pretty good. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to it. I hope you enjoyed watching it over on the YouTube channel. You can find us everywhere. Mets'd up on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on Apple and iTunes. Apple and iTunes, that's the same thing. Apple, Spotify, whatever you listen to your podcast on. Mets'd Up Podcast, you'll find us. I think that's pretty much we're going to wrap it up here for today. I'm Mark. We got James on the other side here. You can follow us, GiraffeNeckMarc, Jeter Had No Range on Twitter. And hopefully the next time we talk to you, the Mets will have some games that we have played because we got nothing right now for you. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys. And we'll see you next time on the Mets'd Up Podcast. Peace out.